You're watching News at Prime. Let's take you back now to our leading story, which is the Stilfontein residents calling on government to intervene to help illegal miners who are allegedly underground still. The residents are taking food and water down to the abandoned shaft. This is after the area was sealed off to force them out. Operation Vala Umgodi, which involves police and the defense force, led to over 1,000 arrests so far, but the operation has been criticized by some groups. Let's speak now to the Mining Affected Communities United in Action Executive Director, Christopher Rutledge, who speaks to us from Johannesburg this evening. Christopher, good evening to you and thank you for your time. I'd like to start with the news that has been developing in the last few hours, and that is some people who have gone underground suggesting that there are fatalities. What should authorities be doing at this time?
Thanks, Koli. Just to say that I'm the Executive Director of the Advice Office. Makua itself is a movement of mining affected communities, and the Advice Office just acts in a supporting capacity for the movement. But in terms of what needs to happen, look, I think one of the problems that we have here at the moment is the approach of government, which seeks to criminalize people who are trying to put food on the table. And I think the response from the community is a telling one, because we are led to believe by government, the Department of Mineral Resources and others, that that communities are generally held hostage by artisanal miners, and that artisanal miners are generally violent and so on. And that's not entirely untrue. I think there are definitely situations and cases where that is the case. However, in this particular case in Stilfontein, you are seeing the community come forward to say, look, there are people who are trapped underground. There are possibly people who have already passed. And, there is an element of humanity that needs to be at play here. So that cry for a human approach to this question is really quite, like I say, telling, because it speaks to the way that government has approached this problem, where it is easier to criminalize and to use violence against poor, marginalized people than it is to create effective solutions to feed the nation, if I can put it that way, because people are hungry and people need to put food on the table. And mining companies are hoarding these resources and saying, well, only we can benefit from this. And that is a dichotomy that faces the state and our society right now.
Yeah. Christopher, I'd like to latch on to the point you made in your latter statement that the community in Stilfontein is beginning to show humanity. Some people listening are going to say the reason that that is happening is because there are locals who are mixed with foreign nationals who are now part of this illegal mining, and that is probably the reason the community is standing up, and some people are willing to even sign indemnity forms to say they're going down there of their own free will, even if death occurs while they try to help those trapped underground.
Indeed, and that's exactly the point that I'm making, Koli, is that artisanal mining is a means, it's a pathway to put food on the table. Now, that community and the surrounding communities, those thousands of miners that are there, that money hasn't gone away. It has been circulating in that community, has been keeping families alive, has been putting food on the table. And with this operation, that access to income, to food, to resources has now come to a stop. And that's what I'm saying, is that the government has approached this problem from a purely legalistic policing viewpoint, instead of saying, here's an opportunity for us to enrich the people of the community, to share the wealth, to make sure that people are able to grow our economy collectively. But instead of doing that, we are locked in a paradigm, in time frame, in a colonial mindset, which says that the mineral resources, even though legally the Minerals Petroleum Act says that the resources beneath the land belongs to all of us as a nation.
Yeah.
Legally, that is not true, because the benefits of that is only going to a small portion of society. And that portion of society, mind you, are mostly foreigners. So most of the money that is generated out of mining is leaving the country, both legally and illicitly.
On that very point, Christopher, I'm sorry to cut in, but I don't want us to lose the thread. And you touch on a very important point, because the Minister of Mines, Gwede Mantashe, yes, he may not be speaking now, but he has spoken on this matter in the past, saying billions are lost to the state because of these illegal mining activities. And that brings about the question as to who is buying these minerals that are brought to surface through illegal means. Who are the kingpins?
Yeah. So there are a number of facets that I have to try and respond to in this very brief time that I have. The one is that there is research, much more accurate research than the minister purports to have, which suggests that at least 50 billion rands, I'm not sure if it's rands or US dollars, 50 billion, I think it is US dollars, is leaving the shores of this country annually through what is called illicit profit shifting and base erosion.
Yeah.
Now that's a whole category of fraud and corruption, which the legal mining sector is engaged in, which robs our country of resources. In terms of the artisanal mining, what we've told government 10 years ago is that unless you regulate the sector, we are going to continue to lose resources and money that can go into the fiscus, but also money that can go into people's plates at home, into their houses and support families. And so the longer government takes to regulate the sector, the more money is lost. The more criminal elements are able to gain traction, to gain power and money, and to influence the sector with violence.
What's taking so long, Christopher? What's taking so long to do exactly what you are suggesting, to regulate this?
Koli, there is a lack of political will. Politically, the mining sector is set up so that a few can benefit. This is the whole way that the mining, and this is what Makua has been calling on. We've been saying that the mining sector, wherever you look around the mine, there are impoverished people, communities. While that particular mine, let's take one example, platinum mine in Mogalakwena in Limpopo, the richest platinum mine in the world, making billions of US dollars worth of profit. But the surrounding community lives in poverty. The same in Stilfontein. You know, so you cannot have a situation where some people are benefiting billions, I mean, extreme benefit, where people become billionaires out of this, and other people are living in abject poverty, can hardly put a plate of food on the table. That scenario is not tangible. It's not workable, not sustainable. So we've said to government, we've got to set out a new law which equalizes the rights of communities to benefit from the very minerals that are beneath their feet, so that we can undercut artisanal illegal mining, which does not want to work within the system, so that we can undercut the poverty, the unemployment, the inequality that is a feature of our country. And yet government has been absolutely, they've rejected it. Gwede Mantashe basically came in, when he came in 2000 and, what was it, 19?
I think it was 2019,
he
yes.
took the amendments to the MPRDA off the table and said, we're not going to amend it because, you know, business didn't want us to amend it. Now, luckily, they are about to amend the MPRDA, because we've been putting pressure on them. And in that, we are proposing that there must be a legislation which deals with artisanal mining. From what we've seen from the responses we've got from the Department of Mineral Resources and from Mr. Mantashe, is that they have no intention of fixing this problem. So we're headed here to another situation where government is going to stick its head in the sand, create legislation which is going to benefit business and is going to leave the people behind, which is going to re-entrench this very problem, and we're going to have a spiraling cycle of violence, a spiraling cycle of illegality, and a spiraling cycle of criminality.
All right.
And certainly that's not a way to build a nation.
Christopher, I'd like to end the conversation on this note, and it is that there is possibly a tragic situation unfolding as we speak. People underground, we are told it's about 4,500. It's an estimate that is not able to be verified by the police because they themselves are too frightened to go underground because they say it's unsafe. On the other hand, you have community members who say, I'm willing to sign an indemnity form to say I'm going down there voluntarily because I can't let possibly my loved one die without getting any help. The approach from authorities at the moment seems to be that it's simply too dangerous to go down there. There possibly are poisonous gases. What do you think the reaction from the community is going to be if government ultimately says we actually genuinely can't go underneath there? And I'm saying this based on previous experience. There were Lesotho nationals that were stuck, I think it was in the Free State. And the government of South Africa simply said, we can't go underneath there. There are poisonous gases. We just can't. I can't tell you what resulted of that story, but I'm merely trying to show you recent history of what has happened. Now that we've also got a mix of locals and foreign nationals there, do you think the community is going to sit back and allow, indeed, that their loved ones are buried alive underground?
Look, Kole, I think it's very sad that black lives don't matter in South Africa, particularly young black men like we find now. But I want to take this opportunity to call on Mr. Mantashe and the government, Mr. Ramaphosa, to provide an amnesty for all of the miners in Stilfontein and to send that message down that there's an amnesty, they will not be prosecuted, and that there will be steps taken, because the MPRDA, the legislation, it's going to go before cabinet very soon, within the next couple of weeks, if not months. So why would you want to criminalize people and potentially murder people down there when you are in the process of putting in place a law that is going to regulate artisanal mining? So we're saying, call an amnesty now. Stop this madness. Stop criminalizing black people. Call an amnesty, and then we want to ask the rest of South Africa to join Makua on the 14th of November, when we march to the offices of the DMPR here in Pretoria at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. Come with us, let us make our voices clear and loud and say that black lives do matter. Young black men who are stuck in those things, they matter. You cannot just close off and say we're not going down or it's too dangerous. We have to find solutions. Enough is enough, Kole. We cannot live like this anymore. You know, life is only worth something for certain individuals, and for others, it seems to be so cheap that we can expend thousands of them in one go. That's just crazy. It's ridiculous. And if that does happen, then Makua will not be silent, and we will call on communities to do what we need to do to hold this government to account.
Very strong words there. Christopher Rutledge is linked to the organization called Mining Affected Communities United in Action. Thank you very much for your time today.